You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. It's Sunday, October 22nd, and there is an enormous amount of weather that's going to be going on this week in this country. Also, some of this is unique, something very unique to take place at the end of October. We also have to discuss super unique stuff that took place earlier this month during the first week in October, especially over Florida, even the second week as well, but especially the first week. But let's get going with probably the most significant topic right now is the Arctic air that's headed into the country.
Oh my gosh.
Big time. Arctic air, not just one air mass, multiple Arctic air masses, cold fronts with continuous cooling trend, something which is not usual. This is something sometimes we see by warm-ups. We gradually get warmer, but here we're going to have just continuous cold fronts continuously pushing the temperatures down. First front arrives already tomorrow for portions of Montana, in North Dakota, perhaps it's even there before tomorrow. North Dakota area gets hit again Tuesday for the southern portions of North Dakota into South Dakota. That front moves in on Tuesday. Wednesday onward, there's good chances for snow across the upper Midwest. We're interrupting this little weather episode right now to ask my 4-year-old over here, Yisrael Zev, what do you think about snow? When you hear that snowstorm is coming, what do you think about it?
I think about when you make a snowman.
But do you think it's like yay or do you think it's like boo?
Yay.
Yay. Okay. Depending on the evolution of a Pacific Northwest system that will be developing later in the week. Multiple storm systems with multiple cold fronts affecting the upper Midwest, the plains, Kansas. Topeka, Kansas might be seeing snow by the end of this week. The European computer model shows clearly that Topeka, Kansas will be in a widespread snow event by the end of the week. The National Weather Service for Topeka tells us that mixed precipitation is a possibility by the end of the week. This Arctic air mass, what's unique about it is that it's very early in the season. Arctic air masses, which are early in the season, a lot of times are just a one-punch shot and then we return to the normal weather pattern. But this one seems like, at first it looked like minimal, a 2-punch shot. Now I think it's starting to be a 3-punch shot. So 3 punches of Arctic air, 2 or 3 punches of Arctic air, and then things should probably return. I don't know. Things should probably return to warmer again because the heat remains down in the south. Temperatures are still warm down south without a doubt, so there's plenty of warm air. In fact, this upcoming Monday or Tuesday in Topeka, Kansas, we have temperatures going into the mid and upper 80s with record highs in the low 90s. So the temperature forecast highs are very close to those records. Here in the Chicago area, we're going to be getting some very unseasonably warm weather on Tuesday. And let me explain a little bit about it, just a little bit. It's a Bermuda high. It's a weak Bermuda high, but it's a Bermuda high nonetheless, which is going to be producing a flow of warm, humid air off the Gulf of Mexico, off the waters up into the Midwest. We have, at the same time, a low pressure system approaching the plains will also be responsible for tapping into this moisture, bringing a south flow flowing right into this low pressure system over in the plains. This is the system that has that powerful cold front which will be trailing from it. Before the cold front moves through, people don't talk about these words in association with a cold front, but it is true. We have some compressional warming that takes place ahead of a cold front. So temperatures become really warm, not just because of the south winds, but there also is some compressional warming that takes place. With that being said, people also have to realize there's a very significant risk for severe weather in this type of a scenario. In fact, October 24th starts severe weather season number 2. The severe weather season number 1 is the springtime. It might even be 2-3 months long. The second one is 2 weeks long, tells us meteorologist Dave Murray, retired meteorologist from NPI. He's the chief meteorologist, worked in St. Louis. He was speaking about the St. Louis area, but St. Louis is a Midwestern city. 2 weeks long. Final week of October and the first week of November is an intense severe weather. That's severe weather season number 2.
Like, what about thunder? A thunderstorm, a loud thunderstorm, is that yay or boo?
Boo!
Boo? Okay, it's boo. What do you say?
Boo!
I say yay, yay, yay.
That starts this week, and we will be seeing significant severe weather. That's Tuesday, especially over the plains, and probably moving a little bit east as the days move on, especially across the south. But here's another thing. The other thing is that these ingredients, what we're going to be seeing, especially later in the week, we have all the ingredients which are necessary to produce a major winter storm here in the Midwest with 6 inches or more of snow. The only thing is the cold air cold enough for something like this to happen? Are the ground temperatures cold enough? But the 3 ingredients, let's review them. I've heard this all my life. Dave Murray is the teacher, just all the time. You just see on the screen, he would show, even as a child, I would see it, the 3 ingredients necessary to produce a major winter storm in the Midwest, which is defined as 6 inches of snow or more, is an Arctic air mass, strong low pressure, and copious amounts of Gulf moisture. Those are the 3 things which are necessary to produce a major winter storm. We will be having the Arctic air mass. We will be having strong low pressure. You know, the low pressure has to be revisited because I saw the low pressure, a strengthening low pressure system from 29.7 to 29.6 as it moves into the upper Midwest. It doesn't really seem that strong to me right now, but I've heard people refer to it as a stronger low pressure than just that. And we have to look in to see how copious is that Gulf moisture. Well, one thing I could tell you is that Minneapolis, Minnesota will be seeing dew points, summertime dew points going into the 60s this week. So that's as copious as it gets this time of the year. You have dew points in the 60s coming off the Gulf waters going all the way up north into the Midwest. So we have all that. The Rapid City, or the Bismarck, North Dakota National Weather Service tells us that 1 inch of snow or more is likely for portions of the Dakotas, but a 6-inch storm or more, it tells us there's a 10 to 30% chance for that. So we're going to call that a 20% chance, which is a slight chance. This far out, they're saying a slight chance for at least a widespread 6-inch snow or more event. And in regards to the 1 inch, they're calling it a 50 to 70% chance. So we're going to call it a 60% chance, which is officially the term likely is used when you're dealing with a 60% chance. Nonetheless, these chances are not so accurate when you're so many days out, and the 6-inch storm could very well end up materializing with much more intensity than people realize right now.
Yes!
And the place, however, where there's much higher confidence in this occurring is really when you head into the Montana area, where temperatures are headed into the single digits by the end of this week. Portions of Montana, in fact, some areas dropping below 0.
What about when it's below 0? It's freezing cold. What is that, a yay or a boo?
Boo!
Oh, it's a boo? What do you say?
Yay!
Yay, okay.
The end of this week, the beginning of next week, and it's only going to get worse. The beginning of next week, in fact, the very final days of October is when the Arctic air makes it here into the Chicago area. This is far away, far out. We'll have high temperatures in Minneapolis, highs in the low 30s. Temperatures are usually about 10 degrees warmer here in the Chicago area this time of the year when you're dealing with something like that. So highs, I would say, would be in the low 40s, which would put the highs in St. Louis in the low 50s. But, you know, it doesn't always work out with such a perfect, a perfect masterpiece like that. So what we're doing here is that really you could just look at the European computer model to see what the high temperatures will be in Chicago. But the problem is that's too many days out. Minneapolis, it's one day closer, so you just look at that and you'll figure out what the other cities are. But high temperatures in Chicago, highly likely to stay in the 40s, at max for the final days of October. October 30th, October 31st. This is an Arctic invasion, a total Arctic invasion. There are, reports right now will say that, there is a reporter who's reporting that the entire country of Canada might be taken over with this Arctic air. That's a possibility, and then the Arctic air comes here into the U.S., and it's here for many areas. In Montana, it's dropping below 32 Monday night, and it remains under freezing continuously for a week. So we're looking at major stuff over there. This is a 6 to 12 inch snowstorm at its peak. In the bullseye, tells us AccuWeather. AccuWeather is putting an AccuWeather max for the Pacific Northwest to be at 30 inches, and this includes areas for the passes. This 6 to 12 inches, heavy snow falling down to the valley floor, and they're calling this the very first significant winter storm for the season, for the winter of 2023 to 2024. It arrives this week. Many of us, this is a super exciting moment. This is really the start of the winter season for real. This is the start. It's not a made-up date. This is each year the first Arctic air mass arrives at a different time. This is when it arrives this time around. And it's not just a one-punch hit. This is minimal 2-punch hit, possibly 3-punch hit for places in Montana. And Chicago might only be able to feel it by the third punch. So for Chicago, perhaps in a certain way, it's a 1-punch hit. But in reality, the synoptic weather setup is not. It's a 3-punch hit, which means it's here for a week. Each punch is 2 days. Every punch is 2 or 3 days. It's here for a week in places like Montana. It's the synoptic weather setup will be influencing Chicago for a week as well. Just because we are further east, we get a more moderated form of everything at this time of the year, especially this time of the year. And we might not actually feel the Arctic feel until air mass number 2 or 3. That's going to be the final days of October. Now, let's go ahead and talk about something totally phenomenal that took place during the first week of October in Florida. And we're just going to hit upon the surface. We're going to scratch the surface, and that's it. We have something that took place, something which usually doesn't even occur in the month of July. Such intense heat does not even occur in the month of July in places in Florida where this occurred. Tampa, Florida, maybe it was Sarasota, Florida, other areas in Florida. Temperatures went into the upper 90s with super high humidity. 97 degrees in Tampa, Florida.
Holy cow!
There were heat indices when I was figuring it out on the heat index calculator. Heat indices of 112, 114 degrees, dew points in the mid-80s, temperatures in the low 90s, some areas dew points in the upper 70s, and temperatures in the mid-90s. These are things that are well above normal in a tropical place. A tropical place does not mean extreme heat. It doesn't mean that. In fact, it's just the opposite. It's rare for there to be extreme heat in the tropics. In fact, if there ever is a heat advisory issued for Florida, which for this season, Florida had the merit or the curse, whatever you want to call it, of being under a heat advisory for much of the summer that was due to extreme humidity. Extreme humidity combined with almost normal heat. We're not seeing temperatures in the hundreds. We were seeing temperatures low 90s, but dew points low 80s and stuff like that, producing miserable heat indices. Well, in the month of October, the sun is significantly weaker, and in July, it's significantly weaker. It's the solar insolation in Florida is less. Even in July, it's less than what it is here in the Midwest. And some people might find that hard to believe. They don't understand it because the ultraviolet index is more in Florida. So you would think the sun is stronger in Florida, but the thing is that the days are longer here in the Midwest. So the extreme heat is something which it does occur on those latitudes, but Florida is just surrounded with ocean. It's a tropical area, and it does occur, even though the solar insolation is not super extreme, but the sun is certainly brutally hot in Florida, and it does occur in those latitudes. Just not in a place like Florida, but by the time you hit October, it's really a rarity to have even just normal temperatures, normal heat. To have temperatures hit 90 degrees is a real rarity in Florida, and we had temperatures going into the upper 90s in October with dew points in the 70s and 80s, producing this is just like peak heating. It's something that one would think perhaps could never occur in the month of October, but it did. And that was the first week of October, and I noticed there was another day during the second week where temperatures went into the mid-90s. That was a one-day thing, but the first week was not a one-day thing. It was several days in a row. Right now, let's go on to the next topic over here. We have a tropical storm/hurricane moving up into the Atlantic Ocean. I don't think anything is becoming of that. We have tropical storm warnings, however, which are in effect off the coast of Florida right now. The Atlantic coast of Florida, we have tropical storm warnings. But we have winter storm warnings in effect for portions of Alaska where you have 6 to 10 inches of snow, and some of these places are going to be getting, the National Weather Service tells us, the Fairbanks National Weather Service tells us we have places receiving wind gusts of 70 miles per hour.
Oh my gosh.
Now, why is that not a blizzard warning? I really don't know. It's a winter storm warning in effect for multiple cities in Alaska right now. This is big-time stuff that's going on. So winter is taking over at least for 1 week. The synoptic weather setup in this country will reflect winter for 1 week. And then it will probably go away. The very initial, maybe even the first 2 initial fronts of this will be producing severe weather outbreaks across the plains, and perhaps even further north than that, even into Minnesota. Actually, Tuesday, Minnesota as well, at least a marginal risk for all types of severe weather. The National Weather Service in Minneapolis, Minnesota tells us we could see all types of severe weather on Tuesday. I would not be surprised if Chicago will see this as well. And snowflakes could be felt, will be felt all the way up even into the northeast part of the country. Just some snowflakes, no accumulation over there. But there will be accumulations on the back sides of many of these storm systems, which in many situations will actually end up being in southern Canada or the upper Midwest by the time all of this unfolds. Thank you for listening. I wish everybody a wonderful week. To summarize this week, unseasonably warm on Tuesday.
We're making another interruption. We want to know what do you think about when it gets warm and humid? If it all of a sudden gets really warm, what do you think about that? Is that yay or boo?
Yay!
Yay! We can even hear the swimming pool in the background. But when it gets warm, you can go swimming.
Colder, cooling trend comes in after that, and the cold Arctic air comes in for the final day of October here in the Chicago area. You've been listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. This podcast can be found on almost every platform where podcasts are available. Following is a winter storm watch in effect from the Omaha, Nebraska National Weather Service. Several additional feet of snow is expected by Monday morning. People were reporting frost quakes. These are earthquake-like tremors. We have a powerhouse typhoon which has developed off in the Pacific Ocean. A big shockaroo to many of you. We have parts of the world that are so hot right now. Temperatures are expected to go into the low 130s. Recorded temperatures during heat bursts have reached well above 104 degrees. It's a rare atmospheric phenomenon. We're going from one extreme to the next extreme. Feet of snow are falling in Japan.
Oh my gosh.
Just Google weather with enthusiasm and they're all gonna come up.
For thunder and for lightning and the rainbow in the sky. For mountains and for oceans or a river running by.